Have you ever just stopped and wondered, what's the point of it all? The daily grind, the big achievements, this constant striving we all do. What does it all add up to? Well, it turns out thousands of years ago, a king, a guy with absolutely everything you could possibly want, asked that exact same question. So today, we're going to dive into his story, a really deep philosophical journey from the ancient book of Ecclesiastes. Right out of the gate, the book hits you with one of the most jarring lines you'll ever read. Our narrator, a king in Jerusalem who just calls himself the preacher, lays his cards on the table immediately. After seeing it all, doing it all, and having it all, his grand conclusion is, it's all meaningless. What a way to start, right?
Now, before we go any further, we have to get this word vanity right. He's not talking about being conceited. The original Hebrew word is hevel. Think about your breath on a cold day. It's real, you can see it for a second, but then try to grab it. Poof, it's gone. That's hevel. It means smoke, vapor, something fleeting that you just can't hold on to. And that's the core problem he's wrestling with.
So, the preacher sets up this grand investigation. He decides he's going to systematically test every possible source of meaning to see if there's any lasting value, any real profit, as he calls it, to be found in life under the sun. That's his phrase for, our day-to-day mortal world.
And this brings us to the question that drives the entire book. What do you really get for all your hard work? What's the bottom line? The lasting gain? This one question is going to fuel a whole series of fascinating and, let me tell you, pretty frustrating life experiments. So he decides to test the three biggest contenders for a meaningful life. First, he's going to try to find the answer in wisdom and knowledge. If that doesn't work, he'll try pleasure and just pure self-indulgence. And finally, he'll try to find it in great accomplishments, in building a legacy. Let's see how that works out for him.
All right, first up, wisdom. And remember, this guy was supposedly the wisest man of his time. He had access to all the knowledge in the world, and he fully dedicated himself to figuring out how everything works, thinking that if he could just understand it all, he'd find purpose.
But, well, this experiment completely backfired. It turns out the more he learned, the more he saw all the injustice, all the pain, and all the messed up problems in the world that he couldn't fix. So instead of bringing him peace, more knowledge just brought him more sorrow. Wisdom, he concludes, is definitely not the answer.
Okay, so plan A was a bust. If thinking your way to happiness doesn't work, what about just feeling your way there? For his next experiment, the preacher goes all in on pleasure. He literally says, "I withheld not my heart from any joy." We're talking parties, wine, music, incredible wealth, anything and everything that could possibly feel good.
And yeah, you probably guessed it, this failed too. He found that all that pleasure was just a temporary distraction. The laughter felt kind of empty, and the good times didn't actually accomplish anything. Sure, it was fun for a moment, but when the party was over, he was right back where he started, feeling empty. It was all just more hevel, more smoke.
All right, on to the final experiment, legacy. If personal wisdom and personal pleasure are dead ends, maybe building something that will outlast you is the key. So he does. He undertakes these massive projects, building palaces, planting vineyards, creating huge gardens. He literally builds an empire.
But even this ended in failure. Why? Because he had this crushing realization that one day he would die and have to leave it all to his heir, who might be a total fool and just ruin everything he'd built. The thought of it made his entire life's work feel totally pointless.
So at this point, the preacher is at rock bottom. Wisdom is a dead end. Pleasure is a dead end. Work is a dead end. And this despair leads him to a really profound and honestly pretty dark observation about the one thing that connects every single one of us. He starts by acknowledging something obvious. In life, of course, there's a huge difference between a wise person and a fool. He says the wise person can see where they're going, while the fool is just stumbling around in the dark. Seems pretty clear who has the better deal, right?
But then he hits you with this gut punch of a realization. Despite all the differences in how they live their lives, one single event happens to both of them. There's one final destination that no one, not the wise, not the foolish, not the rich, not the poor, can ever avoid. And that great equalizer is death. No matter how smart you are, or how well you live your life, you end up in the exact same place as the fool. Your wisdom can't save you. Your accomplishments, your memories, they all get forgotten. This, for him, is the absolute lowest point of his entire search.
But right here,
just when things seem completely hopeless. The whole tone of the book begins to shift. It's like, having torn down every false source of meaning, he's finally ready to build something new. An unexpected philosophy based not on achieving grand things, but on simply accepting life as it comes. Let's check out his new solution.
He begins with this beautiful, famous poem. And the big idea here is that instead of fighting against the chaotic nature of life, he starts to embrace its rhythms. He realizes life isn't a problem you're supposed to solve, but a series of cycles that you have to live through. There's a right time for everything.
And the key insight here is this idea of balance. Life isn't all happiness, and it's not all sadness. It's both. The way out of despair isn't to chase one and run from the other, but to accept that they're both part of this beautiful, uncontrollable pattern of what it means to be alive.
So here it is, his first piece of radical, practical advice. After trying to find meaning in these huge, abstract ideas, the answer he lands on is incredibly simple. Since you can't control the big picture, find meaning in the small, present moments. The food you're eating, a good drink, the satisfaction from a hard day's work. These things, he now says, are actually gifts from God.
He calls this your portion. It's your slice of life. It turns out the real profit he was searching for this whole time wasn't some grand cosmic secret. It was the simple, tangible joys of relationships, food, and work, right here, right now. That is the only reward you're ever guaranteed in this life.
So, after this long, exhausting journey through despair and discovery, the preacher is ready to wrap it all up. He's about to give us his final, summarized verdict on what this whole life thing is truly about. This is it, the drumroll moment. After all the experiments, all the poetry, all the hard-won wisdom, he says, okay, let's just get to the point. What is the final takeaway from this entire investigation into the meaning of life?
And his final conclusion is this: find joy in the simple, everyday gifts, your food, your work, the people you love. But, and this is the key, frame all of that joy within a life of reverence and respect for God. That combination, he says, is the whole point of being human. It's the answer to the Hevel problem. The joy is real, but it's fleeting. The reverence for God is what gives that fleeting joy eternal weight and meaning.
And so, the preacher's journey leaves us with this really powerful thought. He spent his entire life looking for lasting value in the material, mortal world under the sun, and all he found was smoke. And in the end, it seems his solution points to both enjoying the present moment while also looking toward a reality that exists beyond the sun, a pretty incredible conclusion to a timeless search for meaning.